What's up, guys? So now that Wano is officially over, at least for now, I think maybe we may come back, but since it's officially over in the manga, definitely wanted to do a little bit of power scaling. Sorry about the lateness of this video. I was definitely working on it during the break, the month-long break that we had from the manga, but got a little bit tied up with a few other things. So before I dive deeper into Law and Kid versus Luffy, I just wanted to touch bases on the recent chapters so we can understand how we even got here. So when we get to chapter 1000, we have the Supernova 5 versus Big Mom and Kaido. And the Supernova were doing a decent job holding their own, but at the time it didn't seem like they had any chance of winning. Like, they were gonna definitely need to bring out their best attacks, and we haven't at that time seen Big Mom or Kaido's best attacks. Throughout most of that fight, and even the fights before and after, Kaido was just pretty much flexing his durability. He was tanking all of their attacks, even after fighting the Scabbards. Luffy's opening Red Rock attack gave the Supernova some hope because they actually realized that physical attacks can hurt Kaido if used with the proper type of haki. We're gonna fast forward a little bit because although Kaido and Big Mom both had some more impressive attacks, like Big Mom's God of Lightning Tenjin, that was some pretty dope stuff. And Kaido's Demolition Twisters and Demolition Gust, you know, his variation of wind attacks while he's in his dragon form, those were pretty impressive too. On the Supernova side, we had Zoro use Ashura. Now, this was probably the most impressive attack at that time of chapter 1010, giving Zoro some of the biggest praise. Kaido said that he realized that he can use Conqueror's Haki, which Zoro wasn't aware of at the time. Kaido then pretty much gives us one of the biggest reveals of the story, which kind of explained why the Yonko are so powerful, and also explained a little bit more as to why Roger and Whitebeard were able to do the things and accomplish the feats that they did. Once we learned, and Luffy learned this as well, that you can coat your attacks with Conqueror's Haki, this actually leveled Luffy up to the next level, and he pretty much was ready to go toe-to-toe 1v1 with Kaido. And you know, it's pretty interesting that they say in the story 1 versus 1, you always gonna count on Kaido, when I personally think that Big Mom can actually pose kind of a bigger threat fighting her 1v1 because of the fact that she has so many different types of abilities with her Devil Fruit. But nonetheless, Big Mom wasn't the one who shown the durability feats that Kaido has shown. But yeah, going forward from here, it was pretty much 1v1 for Luffy versus Kaido. Luffy was basically kind of in training, learning how to control his Conqueror's Haki coding, now that he's combining that with the Ryo techniques he learned from the old man Hyogoro. Law and Kid were pretty much able to remove Big Mom from the rooftop at that point, and that's what was going to set up Big Mom versus Law and Kid. And so the fight was pretty much designed to show us a very large display of Devil Fruit abilities, because Big Mom, like I said, she had that deep bag, and so does Law. Kid, not so much, but he still had some impressive feats against Big Mom. So for that fight, it definitely didn't really seem like it was going anywhere for Law and Kid. There were a few times when it looked like Law actually was doing some damage to Big Mom because of his ability to attack internally, but Kid wasn't really doing much with his physical attacks since he doesn't have Conqueror's Haki coding. And we learned that this is pretty much something that's almost necessary to defeat a Yonko, unless you have a Devil Fruit that is pretty much hacks. But yeah, getting into that fight, Kid actually started off with a little bit of a handicap because we also had the fight going on between Killer and Basil Hawkins, and Basil Hawkins was using a straw doll that had Kid's life force in it. So any attack that was hurting Hawkins was also going to hurt Kid. So Kid was taking some additional damage, but that actually ended pretty quickly once Killer was able to figure out how he can beat Hawkins without hurting Kid, which he cut off his arm, and that was pretty easy. I'm going to kind of go back and forth between Luffy's fight with Kaido and this other fight, because that's kind of how the story was going. Also, at this point, Luffy had actually took that L and he fell off of the rooftop. And Yamato steps in to temporarily deal with Kaido. And this is what I'm talking about with Kaido's durability, because he had multiple fights taking a lot of damage, and he was still able to just continue fighting. But yeah, anyway, Luffy finally does come back with Momo's help in his giant dragon form, and Luffy comes through with Gear 4 Snake Man. He switches back and forth a little bit while he's fighting Kaido, and then we also go back to the fight with Long Kid versus Big Mom. We didn't actually get to see that much progress, but there was definitely some of the fighting happening off screen, because we see that Long Kid are starting to look a bit exhausted, and they actually had a conversation about using their awakening abilities. Big Mom visibly showed that those attacks actually affected her when she gets out of the pile of metal, showing that she's bleeding internally due to Law's attacks and actually Kid's attack pushing her down after that. Big Mom then shows some crazy ability where she's able to take the lifespan of others to add to her power to make her an even bigger mom. We switch back to see Luffy is back on the roof fighting with Kaido. Momo actually went off to actually start to prepare to hold up the island, because if Kaido is defeated, the island is going down. Luffy was very impressive going back and forth with Kaido, only in his base form, now that he knows how to use Conqueror's Haki and Fusion, fighting with Kaido in his hybrid form. And now Kaido is drinking, which I think was actually making him a bit stronger and going through these different drunken moods. But once again, Luffy was just very impressive with the way that he was keeping up with him. They had that crazy clash where Kaido was using the Kundali Dragon Swarm and Luffy was using the Rock Gatling that had that beautiful double spread. Definitely can't wait to see some of this animated. But yeah, this was just continually showing how impressive Luffy's feats are, and the fact that he was keeping up with Kaido in just his base form. But either way, we knew this wasn't going to be enough. But we'll come back to that, because we cut back to Long Kid versus Big Mom, and they're continuing to use their awakening abilities, and they're somewhat doing some damage to Big Mom, but it definitely wasn't enough to defeat her, it looked like. So they went with the next best route, a TKO. Kid had two pretty decent abilities. The fact that he's able to assign magnetism and on someone as powerful as Big Mom, that was actually pretty impressive. And his final ability where he created the railgun, I thought that was actually pretty dope too. Definitely don't get me wrong with Law, because his abilities are just broken. He was able to create this giant sword, using his room once he put the room on his sword. And then he was able to put Big Mom into a silent room. Now that alone, he was able to pretty much, I said this in the video when I was talking about the chapter, he was able to copy a whole different Devil Fruits ability, which to me is still blowing my mind months later. But either way, Big Mom was not completely defeated. She was removed from the island, and as she fell into the hole, the bombs blew up, which dug her into a deeper hole. So that's how Big Mom got defeated. It was by knockout, by ring out, I should say. And now getting back to Luffy and Kaido, because that was the only fight left, we kind of fast forward to where Luffy decides he wants to use his final Gear 4th attack, and then he gets interrupted by the CP0 guy. So now Luffy was somehow able to survive that attack. I'm gonna say survive with throwing up the air quotes, because it did kind of seem like he died for a moment, but his Devil Fruit ability was what brought him back, because we found out that he really has a mythical Zoan fruit. And now we're pretty much calling Luffy a god at this point, because he's got the human fruit model Sun God Nika. Now, this ability, this Devil Fruit pretty much gives you the free will to do anything you can pretty much think of in regards to affecting your environment and even yourself. Luffy turns into a giant. Luffy jumps into the air and grabs lightning. Luffy's able to rubberize not only his surroundings, but even people that are around him that he touches, or basically that are affected by his Conqueror's Haki, which is pretty much hacks. Now Luffy was now able to pretty much use Kaido as a toy, jump rope, throw him around, go inside of him and come out of him, rubberizing him and do all these different things, lift up the ground, bounce back, the blast breath. It was pretty much insane to watch. and I definitely can't wait to see this animated too. And now when we finally do get to the end of the fight, to me it was a little bit anticlimactic because we had literally a giant punch coming down for almost 3 chapters that finally took Kaido down. But either way, we knew that Luffy was going to beat Kaido at some point. And so now that both of the fights were completed, I thought we should talk about this because Luffy 1v1 was able to defeat a Yonko. Law and Kid 2v1 were not fully able to defeat a Yonko. They had to win by ring out. So even though their abilities are pretty much hacks, well, I'm going to say that more so for Law, would they be able to fight Luffy in a 2 versus 1? Would they be able to actually beat him? Or would it be a very similar scenario where they would need to like ring him out, throw him into the water or something like that so that they could beat him? So now I'll say this. Luffy, his abilities are pretty much hacks. I don't think that it would be very easy for him to defeat Kid and Law. I mean, yeah, you could definitely throw out ideas like, oh, well, if Kid tries to use that railgun, Luffy could just bounce it back like he did with Kaido's Blast Breath. Pretty much 1 versus 1, Luffy could definitely beat either of these guys. And I think that was the case even before we got to this fight. The only trump card I think they have is actually Law's smarts, his intelligence. That's the only thing that he could probably try to outsmart Luffy, you know, using some of Kid's abilities to distract him while he creates a room inside of him and maybe rearranges things or something along those lines. But I don't know, Luffy, we don't actually even know the full extent to what Luffy can do with his new ability, with this Gear 5. And I think that once Luffy actually does learn more about the Double Fruit and what else he's able to achieve with it, I think that he'll be even more broken. So I'm going to say that it is pretty much safe to assume that if Law and Kid were to go in a 2 versus 1 against Luffy, that it would be a very, very, very difficult fight for Luffy, but I think that Luffy would be able to win. So yeah, guys, that pretty much wraps it up. Law and Kid versus Luffy. Luffy's going to take the W. Let me know what you guys think, whoever you guys think wins, and let me know why in the comments. Definitely appreciate you guys for listening all the way through, and appreciate you guys who have been checking in for weekly content. I apologize, I haven't been keeping up with that, but I'll definitely do my best to get more content out to you guys. Keep supporting, definitely share and comment and leave a like if you guys did. Once again, it's your boy Gabe D Champ. Peace.